Welcome to the deep dive. You've brought us the sources, and we're ready to dive in and unpack them for you.
Sounds good.
Today, we're tackling a story that felt, well, almost jarringly out of sync with the celebrations happening across India just a little while back.
Hmm.
The sudden rumors about the potential sale of the Royal Challengers Bangalore RCB right after they finally won their first IPL title in May 2025.
Yeah, it was quite the moment, wasn't it? 17 years of waiting.
A long time.
Oh, yeah. And the raw emotion of that victory over Punjab Kings, seeing Virat Kohli so visibly moved, the sheer joy just washing over Bangalore.
And then almost immediately, the business world starts whispering.
Exactly. So we're going to take the sources you shared and try to figure out, what those whispers were really about.
Yeah.
Who owns RCB now? Why these rumors popped up then of all times?
Right.
The official reaction, and I suppose what it all signals about the state of the IPL and how it intersects with, global business.
Let's really soak in that victory moment for a second, though, because it's pretty central to this whole story, isn't it?
It really is.
RCB has always been this fascinating paradox in the IPL.
Yeah.
They've consistently had one of the most passionate fan bases anywhere.
Unbelievably passionate.
Incredibly high brand value, and Forbes just last year valued them around, what, $1.2 billion before winning?
Yeah, something like that.
All despite never actually lifting the trophy until then.
That passion is just, unmatched. They aren't just a team for their supporters. It's really tied to the identity of Bangalore. It's a symbol.
Mm-hmm.
And their social media following is just immense. It's the largest globally for any cricket team.
Wow.
So you have this team whose value has been built on brand, loyalty, star power, and then they finally achieve the on-field success everyone craved. It feels like the end of a really long journey.
Okay, so here's where it gets really interesting and kind of weird. You'd think the focus would stay purely on celebrating that historic win.
You would.
But within days, reports started circulating, mainly in the business press. And they weren't just vague mentions. They specifically claimed that Diageo,
The big British drinks company.
right, the massive beverage company which owns RCB through its Indian subsidiary United Spirits, they were actively exploring the possibility of selling the franchise.
And the number being thrown around was absolutely eye-popping, something like $2 billion.
$2 billion.
Yeah. If that figure were even close to accurate for a potential sale, it would immediately place RCB among the most expensive cricket franchises ever sold.
$2 billion. Wow. So why that moment? Why did these rumors seem to gain traction right then, amid all the confetti and celebrations?
Well, look, from a purely business perspective, the timing was, unfortunately, perhaps perfect.
Perfect how?
A sports franchise's value arguably peaks the moment it wins a major championship like the IPL. The brand visibility, the positive feeling around it, the global media attention, it all translates to maximum leverage.
Right.
Buyer interest would likely never be higher than right at that point.
Okay, that makes cold business sense. Strike while the iron is hot, basically.
Pretty much.
And the sources highlighted something else that maybe added a bit of credibility to the reports. The mention of engaging financial advisors.
Exactly. In the corporate world, bringing in financial advisors is it's a standard preliminary step. Is how companies kind of test the waters, gauge market appetite, understand the potential value before they even commit to a formal sale process. So that detail made the rumors feel less like pure speculation and maybe more like a potential strategic move being considered.
But then came the twist. United Spirits, the company that actually holds the ownership stake under that Diageo umbrella, they responded.
They did.
And they didn't just issue some fluffy statement or a classic corporate no comment.
No, definitely not. Their denial was remarkably swift and very unambiguous. The sources quote their statement directly, saying something like, "The aforesaid media reports are speculative in nature, and it is not pursuing any such discussions."
Not pursuing any such discussions. Okay. In the often carefully worded world of corporate communication, that phrase is about as definitive as it gets, right?
It really is. And the speed with which they issued it is also quite telling.
How so?
Well, typically, if there's some genuine exploration happening or even just a slight openness to the idea, companies might take longer to respond, or they might use more, non-committal language.
Okay.
This quick, firm denial suggests a pretty strong desire to just shut down the speculation immediately.
It does leave you wondering, though, and the sources kind of touch on this, where did the rumor even come from? Was it completely fabricated?
Could be.
Did like a casual internal chat somehow leak out and get blown way out of proportion? Or perhaps was someone maybe testing the market reaction indirectly?
It's hard to say for sure. But to really grasp why Diageo might even be considering this, or maybe why the market thinks they might, it helps to look back at RCB's ownership history a bit.
Good idea. Where did it start?
The franchise was originally bought in the very first IPL season, back in 2008, by Vijay Mallya. He paid about $111.6 million then.
Right, Malia. He was quite a figure back then, wasn't he? Very flamboyant, deeply tied to the liquor and aviation industries. Kingfisher.
Yeah, he definitely brought a unique blend of glamour and eventually a fair bit of controversy to the team's early years.
His ownership tenure, though, got increasingly complicated with the downfall of his business empire, especially Kingfisher Airlines.
That's right. Legal troubles followed, leading to him fleeing India. And this created a sort of ownership vacuum around RCB for a while.
And that's how Diageo effectively sort of inherited the team.
Pretty much. They acquired a controlling stake in United Spirits, which was India's largest spirits company, in a much, much larger corporate deal. RCB was essentially just one asset within that massive acquisition.
Oh, okay.
Precisely. So Diageo became the owner of RCB not because they were specifically looking to get into sports management, but because it was just part of the package deal for acquiring a key business in India. That's why they're often described as somewhat accidental cricket owners, whose primary global focus really remains firmly on their drinks brands.
Okay, let's pivot back to the business side of actually winning the IPL. Beyond the emotional lift and the trophy, what does lifting that cup actually mean financially for a franchise like RCB?
Oh, it's huge. I mean, yes, there's the official prize money from the league, but honestly, that's just the tip of the iceberg.
Okay.
A championship win triggers really significant spikes. We're talking huge jumps in merchandise sales.
Makes sense. Everyone wants the winner's jersey.
Exactly. It allows the team to command higher rates for renewing existing sponsorships or signing new ones, and it generates just an enormous amount of positive media exposure and brand value globally, too.
Right. We mentioned Forbes valued them at $1.2 billion before the win. Based on the context from the sources, what kind of jump could that win actually represent in value?
Well, the estimate suggested the win itself could push the sort of internal valuation upwards of, say, $1.5 billion, possibly even closer to $1.8 billion.
Wow.
And that's before you factor in any potential strategic sale premium, like that rumored $2 billion figure.
So looking at it purely through a cold business lens, detached from the emotion of the sport, does selling immediately after a championship at potentially peak value make clear strategic sense?
From a purely financial engineering standpoint, absolutely, yes.
Really?
It aligns perfectly with maximizing the return on an asset. You've just achieved the ultimate proof point of value on the field, which validates and enhances all that brand value built off-field over the years.
Which, again, helps explain why those rumors felt plausible to the market, I guess. It fit the classic business playbook.
It did.
But as we know, sports isn't just business. What was the reaction from that famously passionate RCB fan base when these rumors hit?
Oh, it was intense, as you'd expect. The sources describe it basically as a social media storm. There was panic, disbelief, and maybe, most significantly, a really deep feeling of betrayal.
Betrayal? Why?
Well, think about it. These fans had waited 17 years, poured their energy and loyalty into this team through thick and thin, mostly thin, until then.
Right.
Finally saw the dream realized. And the thought that the owners might just immediately cash out felt like a real slap in the face to many of them.
That connection is so deep, isn't it? For the fans, it's clearly not just about watching a game. It's like part of their identity, tied to their city.
Exactly. The idea of new, possibly faceless corporate owners coming in and potentially changing the whole character of the team was genuinely distressing for them. You saw that online.
And this whole episode perfectly highlights the increasing power of modern fan engagement, doesn't it?
It really does. Fans aren't just passive consumers anymore, not by a long shot. They have a collective voice, amplified exponentially by social media. And companies, especially in really public-facing arenas like sports, have to be acutely aware of that. They have to be responsive to that sentiment. Fan pressure can absolutely influence, or at least publicly shape, corporate actions and communications.
One of the sources brought in the perspective of a sports business expert, a Dr. Amit Verma. What was their key take on this whole saga?
Yeah, Dr. Verma offered a pretty crucial insight, I think. while acknowledging that the timing from a pure valuation standpoint was indeed optimal for a potential sale.
Right, the peak value point.
Exactly. But he suggested that Diageo's swift and very clear denial indicates they likely see the long-term brand value of associating with the IPL and Indian cricket as more strategic for their core business.
Ah, their drinks business in India.
Precisely. Their spirits business in India. So it's not just about owning a sports team as an isolated asset. It's about leveraging the IPL's enormous platform and popularity to connect with consumers in what is a really vital market for their beverages.
Okay, that makes sense. It's a strategic marketing play, too.
Yeah, potentially a very valuable one long term. The expert also pointed to the IPL's massive global growth. These franchises are increasingly seen not just as Indian sports assets, but really as international entertainment properties.
Mhm.
And that attracts global investment interest, which further drives up their value overall.
This RCB story also seems to connect to broader trends we're seeing across the IPL, doesn't it? Like the skyrocketing valuations we just discussed.
Definitely.
And a noticeable shift towards more kind of corporate ownership models compared to the earlier days of the league with more individual, sometimes flamboyant owners.
It's a significant evolution for sure. Corporate ownership can bring greater financial stability and resources, which is generally beneficial for the league and the teams, professionalizes things. But it does raise questions sometimes about that personal connection, whether a huge global conglomerate feels the same emotional bond or understands the nuances of fan loyalty in the same way a local owner might. It's a different dynamic.
And it certainly demonstrates how quickly a rumor, even one that gets denied pretty firmly, can spread like wildfire in the social media age. It almost instantly forces a public response from the company involved.
Absolutely. You can't just ignore it anymore.
So, based on that clear denial, the immediate outlook for RCB seems to be what?
Business as usual regarding ownership?
It appears so. The celebrations continue, and the focus presumably shifts back to the cricket, at least for now.
But this entire episode really shines a spotlight on that inherent tension in modern sports, doesn't it? The balance between the pure passion of the sport itself and the increasingly massive business that's built around it. Success on the field, undeniable, drives value off the field, and that increased value inevitably attracts more business interest and, well, speculation like this.
Yeah, and RCB's challenge going forward is pretty fascinating now. How they capitalize on the momentum and success of this, the increased value, the fan euphoria, while also retaining the team culture and identity that has resonated so deeply with supporters for all those years. Player retention must be absolutely critical after this win, too. Success makes your players incredibly desirable targets for other franchises in future options or trade windows.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah.
Navigating that next auction cycle will be a major test for them. It always is after a win.
And they need to build on this, right? One championship is incredible, historic for them, but the goal now has to be sustained success, building a real legacy that reinforces both the sporting achievement and that brand value.
That's the dream for any franchise owner, corporate or otherwise.
So, looking back at everything we've unpacked from your sources, what are the sort of big takeaways from this whole RCB sale rumor saga? First, I guess, success in sports brings tremendous opportunities, but it also brings intense scrutiny from the business world.
Absolutely. Second, fan engagement and public sentiment are incredibly powerful forces in modern sports. Companies just cannot afford to ignore them, and they have to navigate them really carefully.
Third, the business of cricket, especially in the IPL, is clearly evolving into something far more complex now. It involves global corporate strategy, long-term brand alignment, market fit. It's not just managing a sports team anymore.
Well said. And finally, I'd say timing really matters in these business decisions, and that includes considering external factors like fan loyalty and the sort of emotional context surrounding a major sporting achievement like winning the IPL after so long.
This deep dive into the RCB sale rumors really illustrates that complex, dynamic interplay between sport, big business, and that incredible, passionate energy of the fan base in the IPL.
Yeah, it's a landscape where on-field success can immediately trigger off-field speculation and where the loyalty of the supporters remains the undeniable heartbeat of the franchise, regardless of who holds the shares.
So here's something maybe to think about as you go forward. In this rapidly evolving world of global sports, with more and more big corporate money entering the picture, how will franchises like RCB successfully balance the massive financial opportunities that come with success with the deep emotional connection and identity they represent for their millions of dedicated fans.
Yeah, what does the future truly hold for sports ownership, as those lines between sport as a passion and sport as a global entertainment property continue to blur? Big question.
That wraps up our deep dive into the surprising rumors that followed RCB's historic IPL victory. We've sifted through the sources to try and give you the essential insights.
Thanks for joining us and exploring this really fascinating intersection of sport, business, and fan power.
We'll be back with another deep dive for you soon.